Welcome back to the channel, Lead Like This. We're exploring the Book of Mormon for leadership insights that are relevant to us in our modern day context as we're trying to elevate our leadership and elevate the culture of our communities that we're serving in. And today we're going to talk about a very critical aspect of leadership, which is vision transference, sharing vision, helping people to get vision, our followers to get vision. And a lot of times we have a blank slate. We don't have vision, they don't have vision. So we can come together and we can say, we're going to develop vision together. But more often than not, with transformational leaders, there's already some sense of vision in our minds. And we're needing to transfer that vision to other people. And the reason why that vision matters, we talked about this in the last video, is we need something to change. We need them to perform their tasks differently or to perform different tasks. And so vision is what enables them to go from a transactional or minimalist approach to the activities that they're engaged in to a more engaged and fulfilled and energetic and dynamic approach to performing those tasks. So vision is extremely relevant whenever the current state doesn't look like you want it to look, whenever you have people who are underperforming, whenever your team is itself underperforming. You can start to look at vision and say, do we see in our mind's eye the same thing in terms of the current state and the way things really are, but also in terms of the future state and the way things really could be if we were to align to our deepest purposes and values. And so taking this assumption that you've got a vision or you've got some degree of vision that you want to transfer to your followers, look to this example in First Nephi chapters 11 through 14. So in this example, we're putting the angel in the position of the leader, and we're putting Nephi in the position of the follower. The angel wants to transfer something to Nephi so that Nephi will begin to show up differently. And the angel engages in a very interesting pattern where he essentially says, look, and he orients Nephi's attention onto something. Now, in this case, he's actually potentially seeing things, right? The Book of Mormon videos make it seem like there's like this projector in the sky where he's, seeing these visions. However it happened, whether Nephi was transported there or he saw them on a screen that came down from the clouds or whatever it was, the angel is orienting Nephi to say, look at this thing and pay attention to this. And then once Nephi is looking at it, the angel starts to ask him questions along the lines of, what do you see? So instead of telling Nephi what he's seeing, he says, what do you see? Now, to be fair, he does give a little framing here and there, like, hey, you're about to see this, and then you're about to see that. Or, sometimes Nephi will say, I don't know what I'm seeing. And the angel will say, okay, well, you're kind of seeing this, and now what does it mean? Right? So what do you see and what does it mean? So there's not this rigid, like, you can't ever give any interpretation or any framing to these things. But there is an overwhelming tactic, which is, I want you to look at this, and I want you to look closely and tell me what you see and tell me what it means to you. And if you were to look at it this way, what would it mean to you or mean to us? And if you were to look at it that way, what would it mean to you and mean to us? And so this pattern goes on in these 4 chapters, and then something starts to shift. So in the beginning, it's look, and then I looked. Look, and then I looked. And pretty soon it starts to shift to look, and then I beheld, I beheld, I beheld. And then it starts to shift away from what do you see to I beheld, and I saw that it means this, and I interpreted it this way. And so pretty soon Nephi is starting to develop a sense of vision. Now this is different. The angel is giving Nephi visions, the projector in the sky. But most importantly, he's walking Nephi through an exercise with the express intent that he wants Nephi to develop a sense of vision. What do you see and what does it mean? And how does it change your understanding of this whole enterprise that we're engaged in, and specifically your role and your potential to create impact and influence within this larger story that's going on? And so you begin to see that as we progress into chapter 11, it's much more about Nephi just looking and interpreting. And then it gets to this climactic point. The angel does have an agenda here. It gets to this climactic point where Nephi has essentially exhausted his ability to make meaning out of the things that he's saying. And in chapter 13, verse 21, the angel interrupts him after his own monologue. The angel interrupts and says, "Knowest thou the meaning of the book?" And Nephi simply says, "I know not." Now, the whole crux of the vision is the angel wants Nephi to make the book, and he wants him to make it in a certain way. And so he showed Nephi all of this backdrop in order to underscore the importance and the relevance of this book to the Father's entire plan for humanity. And Nephi, by the way, you're the principal author or the initial author of this book. And so after Nephi says, "I know not," the angel now breaks into a long monologue, which takes up the rest of chapter 13 and most of chapter 14. And now he is telling and talking to Nephi, and he's saying, here's what I need you to know, and here's what these things mean. But the point here is that as a leader, he didn't start there. First, he showed Nephi everything he possibly could, and he allowed Nephi all the space in the world to explore these visions and to identify the meaning within these visions with some gentle coaching along the way. And then once Nephi is in a state of preparedness and a desire to learn, and to not only just learn from an intellectual perspective, but to really absorb what the angel is about to tell him in terms of what it means for him and for his people, then the angel goes in and tells him and explains to him. Now, importantly, at the end of this, he then stops and goes back into the pattern of look. And then Nephi looks and beholds and goes back into that pattern of exploring these things. Now, this is really critical for us as leaders, as we need to transfer vision from our mind's eye into the mind's eyes of our followers. It's common in leadership to be very transactional and to say, well, if I just tell them what I see, or if I just tell them what to do or how to do it, then they will know what to do and how to do it. And then they will perform that task. And while we often do get compliance from the people and they do the things that we initially want them to do, this generally very quickly leads to a sense of frustration between us and our followers, because what we really wanted was for them to co-create the future with us. And we don't understand why they aren't rising up to their full potential, magnifying their callings, as we like to say within the church culture. And yet we don't recognize that we have created the confines that they now operate within. We said, here's your job and here's how you should do it. And so they showed up and said, oh, I guess I'm just supposed to do this job. And what we really wanted was for them to be co-creators. We've actually put a fence around them and said, stay within this fence. And when we work with leaders and managers in the business setting all the time, they're blind to the fact that they've created the prison in which their people now operate and function in. And the reason why is because we fear letting go of control. We fear the innovation. We fear the creativity because we don't really know where the people are taking it. And notice here that the angel very specifically is not telling Nephi exactly how to write his book. Instead, he's saying, look what happens when the plain and precious things are ignored or lost. And then Nephi later will write, but it's actually in the earlier chapter 6, but it's after this vision, he'll write, the fullness of mine intent is to just talk about the plain and the precious things of the world. Because he has seen and interpreted through this vision, it's become part of his soul and his character, that what matters is the plain and precious things. And I feel like it's my job to restore the plain and precious things that are going to be lost in the latter days, because I know now through this vision that I'm actually not writing a journal. This isn't for my posterity. This isn't so they can remember what old Grandpa Nephi used to be like. I'm actually performing a work that will have relevance in the grand scheme of things much later to a people I'm not even really related to. And so now I'm speaking to this audience, and now I know what it is that I should write and how I should go about this work. And that's what transformational leadership is all about. You transform the follower into being fully engaged and fully committed to the activities that they're part of, because they can now sense the meaning of their work to the bigger picture. And so we as leaders today, we can follow the example of the angel of the Lord who came down and said, look. And we can say to our people, hey, look at this situation. Look at this interaction that you had with that person last week. Look at it from this angle. What does it mean? Do you understand the meaning of it? And they might be able to intuit some things. And we say, okay, well, actually, if you looked at it this way, what would it mean? Or look at the capabilities of these people that you're leading, right? Look what the youth did in this context that they're not giving you within the ward context. What does that mean to you? What does it mean about their capabilities? What does it mean about their ability to contribute to this development of this promised ward or this promised youth camp? And so as we begin to orient people to pay attention to different things and help them explore those things, what will happen is they'll develop a sense of vision. Not just a vision, but they'll develop a sense of vision. And as they begin to see things differently and understand the meaning of their world differently, they will naturally begin to engage differently and to engage with you as co-creators in that work. That requires us to step back and allow them, like the angel allowed Nephi, to create the book, to do it the way he was going to do it. What mattered most to the angel was that Nephi understood the potential of his work to create impact within the larger work that it was set. And that's what we need to do with our people. Instead of micromanaging and overtelling, we need to help them develop a sense of meaning and purpose and vision, and then let them create, recognizing they might go about it a little bit differently than we would if we were in that role doing that task, but that ultimately what we want is their full engagement and their creativity, not their compliance in performing a task.